Kia ora koutou. Ko Luqman Hayes, tōku ingoa. Hi everyone, my name is Luqman. I'm the Senior Manager for Research Services at Te Mātāpuna Library and Learning Services in Te Wānanga Aranui or Tamaki Makaurau, or AUT. Our university is situated in the Rohe, or the area of Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei. And I'm talking today about equity and sustainability for diamond publishing in Aotearoa, and it's based on a paper which I co-wrote with the chap in this picture who's busy at the back of this, at the end of this bridge that we're building, and his name is Craig Murdoch. So Craig and I are, it's going to let me go to the next screen. There we go. Craig and I are two of the team that help to run Tuwhera, which some of you may have heard of. It's our journal hosting service, and it's in fact the umbrella term for all of our open research platforms here at AUT. We started the journal hosting in 2016, and we now host more than 20 titles, most of them peer-reviewed journals, but also some monographs, some conference proceedings, and so on. We've thought for a while, I guess, about what the future looks like for us for Tuwhera and how we can continue to sustain this service, but also what it means in the context of other diamond hosting services in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And we're also obviously mindful, as I'm sure all of you are, of the unsustainable and frankly criminal nature of the commercial academic publishing system and how it dominates and defines and distorts the shape and nature of scholarly communication. So we decided to talk to the editors and contributors of the publications that we support as a piece of research. And that research, incidentally, was published earlier this year in the Journal of Scholarly Librarianship and Scholarly Communication. A little picture of the diamond open access landscape. There are, according to one study from a few years ago, 29,000 diamond journals worldwide. And many of these are part of quite significant and very well established collectives like Africa Journals Online and Amalika, SciELO, some of the systems you may have heard of, and others are small collections hosted by universities and other institutions, as ours is in Tuwhera. The literature around diamond open access describes it as having quite a unique place in the knowledge production ecosystem, one which is characterized by possibly the truest expression of bibliodiversity, really, inclusivity, experimentation. Diamond journals are generally more multilingual, and they have a stronger regional and community focus. They publish topics and perspectives that don't often meet the selective storytelling of publishable units that the commercially run profit-making publications seek. So it's against this backdrop of the sort of drive for fee-paying open access that systems like Tuwhera really represent a challenge to the hegemony of profit-driven scholarly communications. And of course, inevitably, the questions linger over sustainability of such a system, especially within the constraints of the neoliberal academy. Despite this, we wanted to learn whether Tuwhera could provide insights into whether a well-resourced and open publishing system might look, what it might look like for Aotearoa. And we did this through a series of semi-structured interviews with our editors and some of the contributors. We explored with them what the experience was running an open access journal on Tuwhera, using an open source platform, which many of you will be familiar with, Open Journal Systems. We sought to uncover the challenges and successes and give voice to the people behind the publications. We wanted to find out what their values and aspirations were as open access publishers. What did they see as the future for diamond open access in Aotearoa? And could a service like Tuwhera grow beyond the confines of its own institution? What we found were many of the challenges that will be very familiar to people. Publications are generally hard to run, and editors have to do that on top of their teaching and research commitments. So the work often comes at a great personal expense. Editors barely receive any recognition for running their diamond publications, both within their institutions and beyond, sometimes even from their own colleagues. They're working with either no budget or extremely limited funds, or out of their own pockets. And they have very little or no support for some of those crucial tasks with running a journal, some of the really time-consuming ones around admin, copy editing, layout, design, let alone the marketing and comms, which is required to really get your journal going. The one or two of them make it onto indexing services like DOAJ, and that grants them some sort of accepted legitimacy, if you like, but generally they're perceived as being small and poorly regarded publications, especially when they're dwarfed by those sitting under the control of large, wealthy publishers. But of course, being non-profit is in fact a labor of love. When we talk to our editors, this is what we discover, that it's not about academic ego, and it's definitely not about commercial gain. Amongst the other findings, the really positive ones, include some really, really important things. Our diamond journals are essential as venues for some first and early publications, especially for early career researchers, sometimes for postgrads. The editors provide a mentoring scaffolding approach. They invest a lot of their time in bringing things up to standard. In addition, of course, they work as an access to quite a non-academic audience, a crucial one, especially for an institution like AUT, where industry and practitioners have an interest in much of the research that goes on. And of course, being part of the community in that way creates a reciprocal kind of dialogue between the publication and the community itself, or the practitioners. Our publications encourage diverse formats, experimenting beyond the legacy of Western academic norms and being a space for other forms of research output. And marginalized voices are fostered and given genuine space. And Māori methodologies are incorporated. And if we could just contrast this with the words of an academic who was in touch with me recently at AUT, who explained as a Māori researcher how hard it can be to publish papers with Māori titles and significant Māori research content. She said, and I quote, "I'm rewriting one of my research papers in preparation for submitting it to the 6th journal. The previous 5 were all desktop rejections that dismissed us as being irrelevant, uninteresting, or in one memorable email, cartoonish. We often can't even get past the gatekeeper editors into the peer review process." Her words are a real illustration of the ongoing prevalence of white, Western, colonial domination in academia and academic publishing. Some of our editors in the interviews reflected on the context of running journals in a society struggling with its own history of colonization. So alongside supporting Indigenous voices, they're also actively seeking to decolonize the journal. In some cases, they see themselves making a small contribution to a global goal of decolonizing the production and dissemination of knowledge. As one of the interviewees put it to us, there needs to be more understanding by the academics of the power of this. So given the kind of values that were coming out of these interviews and the themes that we can both identify and relate to, we propose to each of our interviewees a question. What if we could create a shared service built on the values and purpose that we share, both those of the editors and the Tūwhera team, of nurture, compassion, authenticity, collaboration, local community impact, and honouring our obligations under Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the founding document of New Zealand? We could meet the challenges of sustainability, the admin, the copy editing, layout or marketing through a shared pool of resources that could be drawn on as needed. And in so doing, we could free up time for our editors to do the real work they want to be doing, the editorial stuff, whether that's improving their peer review processes whether it's growing or diversifying their publications. And what if we could do this in such a way which was tiriti-centred in its design, in its governance and its operation, ensuring sovereignty of Māori data was upheld, creating a collective infrastructure and service that was an expression of partnership and of mana motuhake, liberating the entire publishing process in Aotearoa. All it takes is a bit of investment. And I probably haven't given you enough time to read all of this, but this was their reaction. Obviously enthusiastic, perhaps even life-changing. But that's not what we choose to do with our money. Instead, we choose to spend millions upon millions of dollars with the profit-making publishers, and we spend virtually nothing on our diamond journals. Regardless of the reasons, whether it's budget inertia, whether it's cost visibility or publisher pressure, or trying to align with the very neoliberal measures of impact, the contribution and even existence of diamond journals is simply not valued. Existing budgets are already stretched, but why are they, and who reaps the benefits? While the large profit-making publishers continue to control, to set the research agenda, and to place ever-growing pressure on library budgets, fueled by AI hype and overselling, community-driven grassroots research suffers. Even in purely financial terms, as a return on investment, it makes no sense whatsoever. When we think about how we maintain the status quo of affairs, we need to ask if we are being true to our values. For those of us in Aotearoa New Zealand, are we fulfilling our role as partners in Te Tiriti? And for everyone else, are we allies to our researchers? Are we advocates for marginalised and underrepresented voices? Our institutions are very fond of using these terms when it suits them: diversity, equity, inclusion. But we actively and generously fund a system which works in direct opposition to those values. So while we're here talking about negotiations with publishers over what meagre read and publish offerings they may have, the huge growth in hybrid and in APCs is destroying genuine bibliodiversity. Only real investment in diamond can help its potential to be realised. Stable, predictable funding for a national diamond journal infrastructure and associated services will ensure diamond journals are afforded the mana-enhancing respect they deserve. This will require vision and courage, but it's affordable and it's achievable. The 8 New Zealand universities collectively spend more than $80 million annually on journal subscriptions and read and publish agreements. This money, effectively funded by taxpayers, is almost all spent offshore. Just a small portion of it, redirected towards diamond journals, would enable sustainable, equitable open infrastructure and service. This 2.5% on the screen is derived from the 2.5% commitment, in which David W. Lewis argues that every academic library should commit to contributing 2.5% of its total budget to support the common infrastructure, that's software, projects, repositories, organizations, needed to create the open scholarly commons. So in Aotearoa alone, this would provide a starting point of around $2 million per year. This is just one proposal, and that was from 2017. Another was the Je Circle, which called for a like-for-like transition, switching spending with commercial publishers to investment in diamond journals. And they stated, current journal subscription spendings should be changed into investments, enabling the scientific community to regain control over the publishing system, again in 2017. 2017 was obviously a big year because the University of Lorraine cancelled its subscription to Springer in that year, and then in 2023 it cancelled its deal with Wiley. The money they saved was channeled into an open science fund, which supports open research infrastructures, training and support programs for open research and diamond open access publishing. Hang on. We've talked about the rich benefits of diamond open access and why, without even intending it for it to be, In fact, it is central to the values of many of our institutions. But consider why Diamond is crucial now more than ever. We are living in an era of misinformation, of growing bigotry, fascism, Zionism, and violence against Indigenous peoples, erosion of treaty rights, and climate change. A model run only in the interests of vast revenue generation for the benefit of shareholders is not one concerned with progressive change or with equity. Equity comes from bottom-up collaboration, from working with and for communities. Inspired by the success of diamond systems elsewhere, we can make a shared system that is unique to Aotearoa, perhaps to the Pacific. And we can help shape a research culture that is not only equitable, but works in the collective interests of people and planet, of knowledge sharing and knowledge growth, rather than the perversities of publisher metrics and individualized success and profit. We propose that the time for action towards this goal is now. Kia ora, and thank you for listening.